So you want to know how to play Dracotail? Well, I'm going to teach you. This is going to be a card by card so that you can learn the deck, as well as combos in pairs of 1-card combos, 2-card combos, 3-card combos, and random hands. To give you a little bit of info about the deck, Dracotail is a fusion summon archetype that came out in the latest Yu-Gi-Oh set as of 8/6/2025, and it is typically seen as probably the third best deck of the format right now. Because it is a fusion deck, you might ask yourself, oh well, can you only summon fusion monsters? And the answer is no. So in cases where you get hit by cards like Dimensional Barrier, you can go into Link monsters or XYZ monsters, depending on what type of build you have. And the biggest reason you can do that is because none of your cards really lock you besides Ketu. So, getting that out of the way, we're going to go into the card by card. So the first card is Dracotail Pawn. This is a level 7 dragon. I believe it's level 7. And its effect, all of the Dracotail effects have an effect when they are used as fusion material. They will set a card from deck, but the dragons specifically have an effect that sets from deck and then does something to a monster on the field, or a spell trap on the field. Pawn's effect is when it's used as fusion material and sent to the graveyard, you can set a Dracotail spell trap from your deck and then destroy a monster your opponent controls. Its other effect is if a fusion monster you control is destroyed by opponent's card effect, you can put it on the bottom of the deck and then special summon a non-fusion Dracotail from grave. This is going to be a card that you will try to keep in hand or get into graveyard at the end of your combo so that you have an additional interruption with it by using it to revive your Mululu or summoning out your Lucaeus so that you can search 𝐒𝐮𝐲𝐩𝐽. It is a very, very good card. 𝐒𝐮𝐲𝐽 has a similar effect to Pawn, but instead of popping a spell trap, instead of popping a monster, it pops a spell trap. And its effect in Grave is you can put it on the bottom of the deck natively to add back a Dracotail spellcaster from graveyard to hand. 𝐒𝐮𝐲𝐽𝐽 is your quick effect to fuse during either player's main phase, and it is going to be the most important card in your deck. It's going to be the card that allows you to play on what people consider to be turn 0, which is if your opponent goes first and you're going second, you can use this to fuse on your opponent's turn. And it also has the same effect as all of the other Dracotails to set a spell trap from deck if it's used as fusion material. Lucaeus is one of the normal summons in the deck, as well as it also has the effect to set from deck if used as fusion material. On normal summon or special summon, it will add a Dracotail monster from your deck to your hand. Mululu is one of your other dragons, and because it's a dragon, you know that it has an effect in Grave that is additional to the effect to set from deck when used as fusion material. Its effect is to set from deck a spell trap and then negate a monster your opponent controls. It also has a quick effect on the field, which you can use during either player's main phase, to fusion summon a Dracotail monster specifically, which is different from 𝐒𝐮𝐲𝐽𝐽. 𝐒𝐮𝐲𝐽𝐽 specifically says a spellcaster or dragon monster, but Mululu says specifically a Dracotail monster, so remember to keep that in mind. Now, this is going to be a hybrid variant, so I am not going to get into the Dragon Maid cards just yet. I'll get into them at the end of the video, and as well as the hand traps which I'm running. I will mention Magnamut because Magnamut is incredibly crucial in this deck, in my personal opinion, because not only is it a dark dragon which you can use to make things like Borreload Furious, it's also level 5 or higher, which you can use to make Philia Regis, or not Philia Regis, the Dragon Maid Negate Fusion, and you can use it to search for your Mululu, your Pawn, any sort of dragon that you might need to either continue your combos on your opponent's turn and make your board breaking potential better, or just flat out allow you to have your own turn when it is your turn. Because you can just search Mululu and then on your turn normal summon it and then use it as bait to fuse or something like that. So I'm just going to move all of the hand traps over here. One of the big strengths of this deck is the fact that you can use extra hand traps you have that you've already used the effects of as material to make 𝐒𝐤𝐢𝐚, and if you do that, you can use 𝐒𝐤𝐢𝐚 to return cards on the field or graveyard up to the number of materials you use from the hand. That is going to be very important for your grind game, and it is also going to be very important for returning cards like Valor to your hand so that you can use them again during your opponent's turn, or just any other generic hand traps. Moving on to the Dracotail cards though, we have Ketu, and I mentioned Ketu earlier with the effect of Fuse, but I meant Rahu is the effect to... Rahu is the card that locks you into fusion monsters for the rest of the turn after you activate it. Ketu is going to be your Shaddoll Fusion. It searches a Dracotail monster when you activate it, and on resolution, if your opponent controls a monster, you can use it to fusion summon using monsters from your hand or field. Rahu is going to be your branded fusion, because this card allows you to fusion summon a Dracotail monster using monsters from your hand, deck, or graveyard. But for the rest of the turn, you cannot summon monsters from the extra deck except for fusion monsters. Then to round out the Dragon Maid stuff I'm running is Changeover and Tidying. I'll get into these later during the combo section. So finally for the traps, we have Dracotail Horn. This is going to return a face-up attack position monster your opponent controls, and on resolution, you can place a Dracotail card from your graveyard on the bottom of your deck, and if you do, you draw a card. And similarly to Horn, Flame is a spell negate, and does the same thing as Horn on resolution, where you bottom deck a Dracotail card and you draw a card. Going into the extra deck to talk about what these do. Your bread and butter fusion is going to be 𝐒𝐤𝐢𝐚. This card is essentially what makes the deck function in the extra deck, because on summon, you can return monsters from the field or graveyard up to the number of monsters you used in the hand to fusion summon it. Keep in mind that this does target as cost, so you do have to select targets when you activate the effect on summon before you start chaining anything else. It also has another effect similarly to the other Dracotail fusion, which is 𝐒𝐤𝐚, to revive itself from grave, but if it leaves the field, you banish it. Speaking of 𝐒𝐤𝐚 is going to be your once per turn when a Dracotail card or effect is activated. You can activate 𝐒𝐤𝐚 to enchain to destroy a card your opponent controls. I believe it also targets. If your opponent chains something to your Dracotail card, you cannot chain this, by the way. So make sure to keep that in mind when you're establishing your chain links, because if your opponent has a response to, say, a Mululu effect engrave, and they chain it, you can no longer chain 𝐒𝐤𝐚 to that effect, because it has been, for lack of a better term, chain blocked. As far as the other stuff I'm running, I'm also running the Dragon Maid package, which is Show, or Shao, Show. I call it Show. I call her Show. 2 house, and then the ladies. You can ignore these if this is not going to be the build you're running. This just happens to be the build that I am most comfortable with and that I've been experimenting the most with. As far as your other fusions, we have a Secretarian. This card is incredible against the mirror match, and it's also good for recycling materials and grave, because while it's on the field, your opponent cannot activate the effects of special summon dragons or spellcasters they control, and then you can use the effect to target a dragon and a spellcaster in your grave, you special summon one, and then you put the other on the bottom of the deck. It also does have an effect to lose attack, based on how many banished cards you have. So if you have one banished card, it loses 100 attack, and so on and so forth. Similarly, Mysterion has the same effect as that, where it loses attack based on the number of your banished cards. Mysterion, though, accomplishes a different niche than Secretarian does, whereas Secretarian is a floodgate, Mysterion is actively a Fenrir, but slightly better, because Mysterion, if your opponent activates a monster effect to special summon a monster, either itself or another monster, on resolution you can activate Mysterion to target the monster that was summoned, and then banish it, and then it will also, you add an additional line of text that says you can also banish all cards your opponent controls, or all cards that are on the field of the same type. So for example, if you are playing against, let's say, Cyber Dragon, and they activate, I believe it's Noctur, to special from hand, you can use Mysterion to target the Noctur and then banish it, and then banish all machines they control, or all machines that are on the field. One Philly Regis. This card is incredible, and it has a much better home in the Dragon Maid variant of the deck, mostly because you can bounce your Dragon Maids to hand, and with the inclusion of House, you can use House to pop a card on a separate chain. Chaos Star Source. This card is just it's just an additional target that you can use. Most of the time you shouldn't be making this card unless you've got like 2 dark, or a dark and a light dragon in hand or on field, and there's not really a better instance where you can, or a better fusion you can make at the time. This card is cool, and it also allows you, if you really want to, you can play the, I believe it's Dark End and the Light Sublimation Dragons, whatever their names are, and they allow you to banish this from the extra deck and then use its effect to do something like, target a Mululu to make it level 8, and from there you can fuse into the Fusion Dragon that has 3800 attack, and it essentially is 3 forced negates. I can't remember the name of it, I'll have to check and put that in the comment section down below. But that is an option if you want to play more of a pure build. You can run Star Source with the level 8 Fusion Dragons to make the big negate, and play more of like a sort of control style. For the rest of the extra deck, we've of course got the SP, the Seals, and the Spirit. Now, Seal is incredible because you can use this to summon your Mululu from deck, and use the Mululu on your opponent's turn to fusion summon into a Dracotail. So that allows you to keep the Femina in hand, or whenever you're going to use it to dodge effects, or use it to actively break your opponent's board. And the Spirit is in here because you have a spellcaster, Lucius. This is a proxy because my other stuff hasn't come in the mail yet. You can use the Lucius to make this, and then use this with Arthalion to make Seal, which is extremely important for ending on better boards. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, we're going to go ahead and get into some combos. So as far as the combos are concerned here, I'm going to show you combinations of 1-card combos, including the Dragon Maid stuff, as well as 2-card combos with, like, say, a random monster in hand and, like, a Lucius. I've decided to turn the VTuber model off for this section because it will end up blocking the graveyard over here, and as well as the deck. And also, sometimes the camera I've got up here does not go very well with the camera for my VTuber model because they kind of get in the way of each other, and yeah. So, we're going to start off with the Parlor, though. So here you normal Parlor, and there are a couple of ways that you can take this. You can use the Parlor to send Changeover, which is an excellent way of getting a poly to your hand, to be able to fusion summon without using your Dracotail effects. And you can also use it to dump the, if I can find it in here, the Lore-Par Dragon Maid. Now, you don't really ever do the changeover unless you open the Lore-Par, and the reason for that is because the Lore-Par is always going to get you a bigger inboard than just dumping the changeover outright. So you only ever do changeover if you already open Lore-Par. So we're going to dump the Lore-Par here, and you're going to banish both of these to summon the Lady's Dragon Maid. This is going to summon out your chamber, which is going to search your changeover, or it is going to search for your tidying. These are kind of hand dependent. If you don't really have the type of hand where you're going to be fusion summoning a whole lot, you might not search the changeover, you might instead search for the tidying to play more low to the ground. This is also dependent on if you get Mulch Armied. If you get Mulch Armied like Fuelos, you probably don't want to search for the changeover. You probably want to search for the tidying to be able to play into that a little better. So here, just for the sake of it, I'm going to search for the... I'll probably just search for the tidying, just to show you guys the one card here. So here, you can set the tidying, and then pass turn. On your opponent's turn, you can use the Lady's Dragon Maid to put both of these back, and then summon out your house. Or, excuse me, not your house, your shell. And so now you've established a negate and the bounce at bare minimum. As well as when you tag out the Xiao into house for the negate, you can use the tidying to bounce the chamber, and then use the house to destroy a card on a separate chain. Now, let's say you have a Parlor and any Dracotail. If you have a Parlor and any Dracotail, this does make the changeover that much more appealing, because you normal Parlor, your normal effect of Lore-Par, tag these out into your Lady's Dragon Maid to summon your chamber, and then you grab your changeover. From here, you can do the changeover using the... let's see... You can use the Ladies and the Mululu to go into Arthalion, and then use Arthalion Chainlink 1 and Mululu Chainlink 2 to set from deck. So your real options here are going to be Rahu and Ketu, and then the Arthalion is going to target the Mululu to add back to hand. Personally, I would probably do the Ketu here, for a reason that I will be showing you. So you set the Ketu, and then Arthalion adds back the Mululu. From here, you can go Ketu to search for your pawn, or your Urgula. I'm going to do Urgula here, because more often than not, you're going to be using the Urgula anyway to add back your Famina from grave to hand. And on a separate chain, you can activate the changeover to bounce your Chamber Dragon Maid and your changeover back to hand. That effect is once per turn, so keep that in mind. And then here, the effect that is not once per turn is the Fusion Summon. So here, you have a couple ways that you can do this, okay? You can use changeover using Urgula and the Chamber to go straight into Xiao, or you can use the Arthalion and the Chamber to go into Xiao. For this specifically, I'm going to use the Chamber and the Urgula, because the Urgula effect will activate, which is going to be good for us to go into the Xiao. And now you've established your negate, and you can go Urgula effect to set from deck. There are other ways to do this combo as well. A lot of them are going to be hand dependent, such as the reality of most fusion decks. So here we're going to set the Rahu. And then you're going to activate your Rahu using your 𝐒𝐮𝐩𝐩𝐈𝐿 in hand, as well as your 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐻 from deck. To go into your 𝐒𝐮𝐩𝐽. Separate chains, of course, you're going to activate the 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐻 to set from deck, which is, I typically set the spell negate, because spells are relatively difficult to interact with compared to monsters. So you're going to set the flame from deck, and then from here you can use the 𝐒𝐻𝐽 to add back your 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐻, and put it on the bottom of the deck. From here, now you can safely pass turn, and on your opponent's turn, you're going to use the 𝐒𝐲 to revive Lady's Dragon Maid, and then use Lady's Dragon Maid's effect to summon from deck a Dragon Tail, or a Dragon Maid, excuse me. So you're going to summon the Parlor, and then Parlor effect to dump your Tidying. This will just give you an option to use for the grind game, as well as if your opponent just removes the 𝐒𝐲 from the board. So from here, you have a spell negate, a destruction effect, a negate, a quick effect fuse. These can revive themselves from the graveyard, and also you're going to use the Lady's Dragon Maid here to go ahead and fuse away the Lorpar and the 𝐒𝐻𝐿𝐼𝐴N. Or 𝐒𝐿𝐼A Regis, which is going to give you a banish, and if you banish from the field, you bounce a dragon monster you control to the hand. Which is also going to allow you to trigger your House Dragon Maid when you do that. Now, the reason that I keep the Parlor in the banished zone is because if your board is relatively intact by the time it goes back to you, you can actually use the Lady's Dragon Maid to shuffle back your House Dragon Maid and the Parlor and Banished to go right back into 𝐒𝐲 during the standby phase, which is extremely, extremely good. So from here, you have the Banished bounce, the negate into the pop, another pop. The card that you typically are going to be bouncing is Parlor, a Tidying for whatever, and the quick effect of 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐻 in hand to fuse. Now, of course, like I said, there are going to be other lines that you can take with that specific hand, but I wanted to showcase a specific combo, a specific end board, so that you at least know how to get to that. Now, we're going to do another combo here, which is going to be your Lucaeus and a Fulos. So you're going to normal summon Lucaeus and then activate effect to search for 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐻. This is then going to lead you into activate 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐻 to fuse Lucaeus and Fulos in hand. The Fulos can be anything, just any monster that you have. I'm just using the Fulos because it is a dead card doing this combo on its own. So you're going to use those two, and you can either do 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐴N here, or you can do the 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐴N. I'm kind of gravitating towards the 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐴N to add back the 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐻 so that you can get Rahu and use Rahu to dump the 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐴N from deck and just do your combo that way. So we're going to go into 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐴N and then go Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2, Lucaeus to set, and then your targets are going to be the 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐻. So you're going to set your Rahu, and then add back the 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐻 to hand. From here you're going to activate Rahu using the 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐻 as well as your 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐴N. go into 𝐒𝐮𝐩𝐩𝐽. Here you go chainlink 1 𝐒𝐮𝐩𝐽, chainlink 2 𝐒𝐵𝐵𝐺. 𝐒𝐵𝐵𝐺 will set. You can do either 𝐒𝐤 or you can do one of the traps here, but you are at the bare minimum going to get a trap regardless. I tend to set 𝐒𝐤 if I know my opponent doesn't have anything, because Horn, while it's good, it does have counterplay, but with 𝐒𝐤 you can add the dragons to fuse with 𝐒𝐵𝐵𝐺, which your opponent really won't be able to dodge unless they have quick effects, as opposed to Horn, which they can dodge by just summoning stuff in defense position. We're going to set 𝐒𝐤 and Flame, and then from here you can use 𝐒𝐮𝐩𝐽 to add back the 𝐒𝐵𝐵𝐺, and then put it on the bottom of deck, and you can use 𝐒𝐤 to add Pawn. Off of 𝐒𝐤 you typically want to add Pawn, Malilu, or 𝐒𝐮𝐩𝐽, if you know that you want to, if you know you're going to be keeping it in hand for your opponent's turn. So here, you can pass turn on this. And on your opponent's turn, you can use the Flame to negate a spell, and then bottom deck a Dracotail card to draw one. Which is, funny enough, going to be our Horn, which is pretty unfortunate. And then, if your opponent has no response to the Flame, you can use the 𝐒𝐮𝐽 to chain, and then destroy a card they control. And then, afterwards, you can use the 𝐒𝐵𝐵𝐺 using the Pawn and, let's say, perhaps the 𝐒𝐮𝐽 or the Arthalion. If you're worried about a card like Called by the Grave, you can use the 𝐒𝐮𝐽 instead to go into your Arthalion. And you can use the Arthalion to target 1 because you used 1 monster in hand, and then chainlink 2 Pawn to set from deck and then destroy a monster. So you can set 𝐒𝐤, destroy a monster, and then bounce a card to your opponent controls. Now if you don't want to do that, you can also instead use the 𝐒𝐵𝐵𝐺 and the Pawn to go into your Mysterion or your Secretarian, because you do have a dragon, a spellcaster, and also a dragon in hand. You can also use them to go 2, 4, 8 to 7, okay. So you can use the 𝐒𝐵𝐵𝐺 to go into your Filia Regis using the Pawn and the Arthalion, which will still get you a set, and then the Arthalion will be in there for if your opponent goes into a Link 2 or something. And Filia Regis only gets, or only has to bounce a monster or a dragon monster to your hand if you banish a monster from the field. If you do it from grave, you don't have to bounce a dragon you control. So keep that in mind. Now of course you might be thinking, oh, these combos don't look that strong. Well, a lot of Dracotail is going to be hand dependent, like I've said before. And so your combos are going to be as explosive as the cards you open. If you open a lot of monsters, that's really good for you. If you open a lot of spell and traps, that might not be so good for you. Which is why a lot of Dracotail decks, you'll see that they run a ton of monsters, mostly hand traps, but they won't be running things like Imperm or board breakers like Dark Ruler No More, things like that, because the ability to make Arthalion with like 4 or 5 monsters in your hand, and then bounce in upwards of 4 or 5 cards, including your own hand traps from grave to hand, is incredibly strong. Especially when you factor in that you can use Floodgate cards like Droll, or Lancia, or even just a Magnamut to get into rotation every single turn to continue adding dragons to your hand. It really does make the deck start to spiral out of control. So here, we're going to do another hand. So I'm going to show off a more explosive combo, I think, which is going to be something like, let's say you got Parlor, 𝐒𝐤, 𝐒𝐵𝐵𝐺. Let's say you've got a hand like this, okay? If you really want to, you can use the 𝐒𝐤 to fetch for an Ash. Which, if they have it, it's fine, because then you can normal summon the Parlor, and depending on the rest of your hand, you can use 𝐒𝐴𝐵𝐼𝐼𝐼 to dodge the Imperm or the Valor by fusing Parlor and a monster in your hand. But we're going to be doing this as if they don't have hand traps, because I feel like playing into hand traps is another video. So here you're going to do the 𝐒𝐤. Personally, I think I will be doing the... perhaps the 𝐒𝐤𝐚𝐥. You could do the 𝐒𝐤𝐚𝐥, to be honest, but you haven't used the Rahu yet. So here you can add the 𝐒𝐤𝐚𝐥. Actually, honestly, you might just do the pawn or the 𝐒𝐤𝐚𝐥 here, because that does make this a little better. So you can do the 𝐒𝐤𝐚𝐥, normal summon the Parlor, send your Lore Partagrave, banish both of these to summon your Lady's Dragon Maid, and then of course this is going to be very familiar, but because you open the additional extension and the just the additional monsters in general, this combo is going to be a lot more explosive. You're going to add the changeover to hand. Of course, you're going to do the changeover using the 𝐒𝐤𝐚𝐥 and the Lady's Dragon Maid to go into shell. So now you've established your negate, and you're going to go 𝐒𝐤𝐚 effect to set from deck. You can set your Rahu from deck. From here, you can use your changeover to bounce the chamber to hand, add it back to hand, use your changeover to fuse these two off into... you could do, say, Secretarian if you wanted to be able to go into your Hieratic Spheres, which is pretty cool. But if you're in the mirror match, maybe you shouldn't make this card, because if you're in the mirror match, you want to keep this on field. Or in your extra deck for whenever you really need to use it. You could also use or make Arthalion here to add back 2 from grave, be able to play on your opponent's turn a little better. But for now, I'm going to make the Secretarian, and we're going to go 𝐒𝐴𝐵𝐼𝐼 effect to set from deck, which is going to be one of your traps. So you're going to set Horn, or excuse me, Flame. Flame is definitely the better one. And then you can use your 𝐒𝐤𝐚𝐥 to add back 𝐒𝐴𝐵𝐼𝐼 to hand, or if you could just do the Secretarian here, which might be slightly better, depending. If you had another monster in your hand, it'd definitely be better to do this combo. Because we don't have that, we're going to go back a little bit. And instead have these in hand, and then do the changeover to go into Arthalion. So that we can go Chainlink 1, or Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2, set the Flame, add back 2. So you can add back, say, the Chamber and the 𝐒𝐴𝐵𝐼𝐼, or you could add back the 𝐒𝐤𝐚, doesn't really matter to be honest. Here I'm thinking of doing the 𝐒𝐴𝐵𝐼𝐼 and the 𝐒𝐤𝐚. And then you can use your Rahu using the 𝐒𝐤𝐚 as well as your pawn. If you had the 𝐒𝐤𝐚𝐥 engrave, sometimes you end up using the Rahu and then dumping the 𝐒𝐤𝐚𝐥 from deck so that you can add it back with Altharion, and then normal summoning the 𝐒𝐤𝐚𝐥 to get its effect, and just popping off from there. It feels really nice. So here we're just going to do... Honestly, I might just do the 𝐒𝐤𝐚𝐥 so I can bottom deck the 𝐒𝐤𝐚. So then you're going to go Chainlink one of the 𝐒𝐮𝐩𝐩𝐸𝐴 to set your horn. And then if your opponent has something, gain 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐢𝐚 to pop a card. We'll go 𝐒𝐻𝐢𝐴 to add back. And then pass turn on this. So on your opponent's turn, you go revive the Lady's Dragon Maid. Effect to summon out your Parlor, dump the Tidying. And then use the ladies to put back the Lorpar and the Altharian to go into Regis. And now you have this, which is incredibly good. Now I'm going to show off a hand that is going to allow you to make seals. We're going to just do Femina, 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐢𝐴, and let's say like just a ton of stuff. All right, 2, 3, 4, just to simulate a hand. I'll do like, why not? So here you can go normal 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐢𝐴 and search for 𝐒𝐻𝐢𝐴. You can link out the 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐢𝐴 into Spirit with Eyes of Blue. Use the Femina to fusion summon. You can use Lulu, Hua, and 𝐒𝐻𝐢𝐴 to go bounce 3. Or Arthalion. You go Chainlink 1, target the Mulu, the 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐢𝐴, and probably the Femina, to be honest, because you can just use the 𝐒𝐻𝐢𝐴 later to add back, and then you're going to chain the Mulu and the 𝐒𝐻𝐢𝐴 to set. So you're going to set Rahu, Ketu, and then add these back. Then from here you're gonna link these two out for your seals because they are both dragons, and you are locked into dragons underneath the spirit. So you kind of want to get spirit off the board as quickly as possible so you can make your other good stuff. And then from here you can go Ketu to add from deck to hand your pawn. Or really, if you wanted to, you could save the Ketu and then wait until you use the 𝐒𝐻𝐢𝐴 effect if you're playing against like a spell trap heavy deck. So you could go like Rahu, use 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐢𝐴, and then use pawn from deck. To go into your 𝐒𝐻𝐢𝐴, and be cautious, by the way. So these require a Dracotail monster. All of the Dracotail fusions, they require a Dracotail monster as well as a monster in the hand. So you have to meet the Dracotail requirement, and you also have to meet the monster in hand requirement. If you can meet the Dracotail monster requirement, but not the monster in hand requirement, then you cannot make these. And then similarly, if you don't have a Dracotail, but you have a monster in hand, you can't make these, so make sure to keep that in mind. Unless you're using Rahu, then you can use a monster in hand and then a Dracotail from deck. So because you made 𝐒𝐻𝐢𝐴 and you used 2 monsters you haven't used yet, you can go 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐢𝐴 Chainlink 1, Pawn Chainlink 2, and then you can go Arthalion Chainlink 3 to revive itself because you 2 monsters did. Actually, do they have to leave the field? Send to the graveyard at the same time. No. So you can chain the Arthalion to special summon it, and then set 2 from deck, which are going to be the cards that you were missing, i.e. your traps. So Horn and Flame. With that said, now you can use the 𝐒𝐻𝐢𝐴 to bottom deck it and add a 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐢𝐴 back to hand. And then you can do Ketu to add the 𝐒𝐿𝐤 from deck to hand. Isn't that beautiful? So now you can pass your turn on this. And really funny thing, if you seal on your opponent's turn, and because you do have the horn, you can actually back up the spheres with the horn, so that they can't just go into battle with a normal summon monster and then kill it. But if you use spheres on your opponent's turn and you're playing the Dragon Maid variant, you can summon the Lorpar, and then use your 𝐒𝐿𝐤 to go into 𝐮. Because you have the Dragon Maid name, and you also have the 𝐒𝐿𝐤 in hand. But even if you don't have the 𝐒𝐿𝐤 in hand, you can just use the 𝐒𝐿𝐤 on your field. Typically though, what you want to go into, you want to summon the Melulu from deck. The reason for that is because this gives you an additional fusion summon during your opponent's turn. So like, let's say, oh yeah, you dump your hand traps, you want to use the Mulu effect, so you can use the Mulu effect to fuse using like Lucaeus, 𝐒𝐿𝐤, Mulu in hand, so on and so forth. Go into another 𝐒𝐿𝐤, and you go chain link 1 to bounce up to 3, so you can declare your targets, and then you can go chain link 2, 3, 4. So Lucaeus will set, Mulu or 𝐒𝐿𝐤 will set and then destroy, and then Mulu will set and then negate. Now typically you don't want to do this until you've already used your traps, because you want to kind of use your traps to keep your traps in rotation. And what I mean by that is, before you do this, you want to go like flame, put something back to draw a card. And then you want to do horn to put back flame and then draw a card. Just so that you can keep at least one trap in rotation. Because as long as you have the traps in rotation, your grind game is so much better. Because the monsters, they can already kind of recur themselves, especially with 𝐒𝐿𝐤, so the traps can't really recur themselves, and you want to keep them in rotation as often as possible. Also, this just adds more cards to your hand so that you can dump stuff while you're keeping them in rotation. So for example, you Mulu here, and you can go 1, 2, after you bell or whatever. 1, 2, 3, then you can go like, oh, and I guess I drew Ogre, so we'll just discard that, and then 4. Into Altharian, or Arthelion, whatever it's called. You go chain link 1 to target 4, and then you go chain link 2, 3, 4 to set and pop, and then set, and then set, and negate. And then once you're done with that, you can do more funny stuff. Like for example, of course you have the 𝐒𝐿𝐤 pop. You can also do 𝐒𝐿𝐤 here, using off one Arthelion and your Melulu, or well, the other Arthelion, and you can go into your Thelia Regis and go Regis effect to bounce your Melulu to hand and then banish a card on the field. Or, excuse me, banish a card on the field and then return Melulu to hand. And if you really wanted to, you don't even have to use, if you draw into a Dragon Maid, you don't have to use the Dragon Maid in your hand to make Arthelion unless it's super necessary. The reason for that is because, so if you do the Dragon Maid combo, and you have banished Arthelions, you can actually use the Lady's Dragon Maid to shuffle them from banished into your extra deck to fusion summon. Which is incredible for the grind game. But with what we've done so far, I think that is enough. And of course, if they end up removing a fusion, you can go... where'd it go? Where'd Pawn go? You can go Pawn Effect to revive a non-fusion Dracotail from grave. So you could do like Lucaeus, bottom deck the Pawn, and then Lucaeus Effect to search. I typically try to go for a 𝐒𝐿𝐤, unless I have 𝐒𝐿𝐤 in grave, and if I know they haven't removed the 𝐒𝐿𝐤 from grave yet, then I won't go for 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼𝐼. I'll go for like a Mululu or just any sort of name that I feel like I'll need. But right now I'm just going to go for the 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼 because it's easy, and also you never know what your opponent has. They might just set a called bypass turn when you try to go Yugioh effect. So, from here you're hooking pretty hard, right? As far as other combos, you can play the deck very low to the ground if you want to prevent yourself from running into Nibiru, or to prevent yourself from running into, for example, like 3 hand traps or something. You can play pretty low to the ground if you feel it's necessary. I'm going to draw a couple of hands real quick to show you guys some other things. So, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wow, that hand is bad. We're gonna ignore that. We're going to ignore that hand real quick, alright? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This hand is much better. Although it's not optimal. I mean, you've got 3 hand traps in full combo, sort of. But we'll go through the play-by-play here. You're going to normal the Chamber Dragon Maid, and if they try to impermit, you can use the 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼 to fuse it away into something. But you're going to have to use cards in your hand as well, which is not optimal. And to be honest, do we have a spellcaster in hand? No. So realistically, I guess you're actually not using the 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼 here, which is fine. You could just use the... yeah, your most optimal play is probably just going to be normal chamber and then add the changeover. If they impermit or whatever, then, well, you're kind of shit out of luck, aren't you? You can use the changeover using all of these, I suppose. So 4 to go into your 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼. You don't have to use 4, you can just use the bare minimum. I'm just doing this for showcasing purposes because it's fun to go like, hey, effect to bounce 4. So changeover engrave, you go chain link 1, chain link 2 to set. So you can set the Ketu, and then you can bounce all of these back to hand. Then you can go changeover, bounce the chamber to hand, add it back to hand. And then from here, you can go Ketu to add. You can add your pawn if you would like. You could add your 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼 if you would like. Here, for this, we're just going to do pawn, because I'm going to go changeover using... honestly... use pawn and chamber. Go into shell. You could use 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼𝐼, or 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼𝐼. 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼. This is my proxy, and its name is slightly different in the proxy, so it's... whenever I see the proxy, I get confused, but... so, you can make show like that, or you can use the 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼 instead of the pawn, and then just use the 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼 like that, with the pawn and something in hand, but you kind of go neg doing that, so I'd much prefer to do it like this. So then here you can go pawn effect to set from deck. So you can set your Rahu. And then you can go Rahu effect using 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼, as well as your 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼. To make 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼. And then you can go chain link. Let's see. I already used the 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼, so you go chain link 1 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼 to set. Your flame. And then you go 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼 to bottom deck, add 𝐒𝐿𝐼𝐼 back to hand. And then from here, if you got 3 hand traps, well, technically 4 hand traps, and You pass turn on this, show is going to activate effect to summon the chamber, and then you add your tidying, which can be good for later. It's also good to activate for if your opponent thinks it's going to be something important like a hospitality, which I don't run. Because in order to run the hospitality, you have to max out on chambers, and that's exactly one more card than the ratios I'm currently running, which I don't really feel like I have space for. I would prefer to have as many hand traps as possible in the list, while also being able to do the bare minimum with the Dragon Maid cards, and also because Chambers are dark, it runs in the Bestials a lot more, and Hospitality against things like DD Crow is just not optimal. Because you can go make normal Chamber, grab Hospitality, link it off for the Spirit, and then when you go Hospitality, they can just banish the Chamber from grave with a Crow, and then now you're out a card, which is not optimal. So from here you have a couple different lines you can do. Like you can do all your hand trap stuff, your show to go into your house, and then you could use the Femina here to go into Mysterian or Secretarian. You could also use the chamber and the house, or the chamber and the Altharian to go into your Star Source. There's a couple different lines you can take there with a suboptimal hand. So now I'm just gonna show you like a more pure Dracotail hand. 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm gonna ignore the tidying, and for combo 6, since I haven't really used it all that much, I'm going to add the Malulu. So here you can, of course, the 𝐒𝐿𝐢𝐚𝐥 is typically the better normal summon compared to the Malulu. However, the Malulu allows you to dodge certain things. For example, if you're going into the Arthalian and your opponent tries to impermanent, you can use the Malulu to chain and fusion summon it away. So you can use like the Arthalian and then a card in hand to make a 𝐒𝐿𝐢𝐚, which might be important for certain game states, so you can keep that in mind. For this though, I think you kind of start off with Ketu. You can go into a couple different things. I'll probably just go into the Femina here, get it in rotation immediately. And then you can use the Malulu to activate effect and fuse using these two. Go into your... let's do Altharian. So you can use Chainlink 1, target both, and then Chainlink 2, 3 to set 2 from deck. You've already used the Ketu, so you're going to set the Rahu and the other trap wherever they are. So the Rahu and the other trap. Flame. Then you're going to add back the 𝐒𝐿𝐢𝐚𝐥 and the Femina. From here, you can link out the Malulu and the Altharian, or the Arthalian, into your spheres because they are both dragons. And then you can use the Rahu using 𝐒𝐿𝐢𝐚𝐥 and the 𝐒𝐿𝐢𝐚. Now, of course, it does kind of suck when you've already used the effects to set from deck because you can't trigger them a second time. So for this, we're just going to go 𝐒𝐿𝐢𝐚 effect. It also does suck to open the traps. They're genuinely like the only real bricks in the deck that you don't typically want to draw. And then you can use the 𝐒𝐿𝐢𝐚 here to add back the 𝐒𝐿𝐢𝐚, and then... oh, that's right, we fused. So you go into 𝐒𝐿𝐚, and you can also do the Arthalian to come back as well. Then you're gonna 𝐒𝐿𝐢𝐚 at a bottom deck, add back the 𝐒𝐿𝐢𝐚. that one, and then pass turn here. And this is a pretty standard pure Dracotail board. Usually you're just running a ton of hand traps in your main deck instead of the Dragon Maids, as well as King of the Swamp, which if you have King of the Swamp, you can run stuff like the Invoked Caliga, you can run the Dragoon, and then use the King of the Swamp either to search Polymerization, which gives you a little bit of more oomph for your deck, or you can use it as material to make those fusions in the deck, like Dragoon, like Caliga, stuff like that. There's also the 𝐒𝐮𝐩𝐩 variants, which are meant to pump out Winda, because Winda is incredibly strong, of course. But there is a singular issue with the 𝐒𝐮𝐩𝐩 deck. It forces you to kind of put the game at a standstill, because not only can your opponent only special summon one monster per turn, but also that affects you as well, which can really kind of dampen your ability to kill your opponent or your ability to play through certain interactions, especially against control or like back row decks. So that is something to just keep in mind. Also, you can use the spheres. So, specifically, you can use the spheres to do something like summon your Magnum up from deck, to get you a search on the end phase if your opponent doesn't really have the resources to deal with everything, and then it just allows you to spiral out of control, because you can add Mulu, you can add, of course, any of your Dragon Maid stuff, you can add Pond, you can add your Urgula, you can add other Bestials, you can add the Sublimation Dragons that banish from extra deck to summon and then have an effective fuse. There's so many things you can search off Magnamut that really do just add to your strategy and help you with either breaking boards or making your end boards better. Sometimes I even use the Magnamut to banish a monster from my graveyard to get the search on the end phase, so that I can just bounce the Magnamut back to my hand with Arthalion, and then use it on my opponent's turn, so I get 2 searches instead of just the 1. As far as the mirror match goes, if you're playing into the mirror match, your key cards are obviously going to be your Secretarian, but you need to be careful, because Secretarian's not going to just outright win you the game, because as long as they can put a body on the field that can hit over the Secretarian, like for example, if they just establish in Arthalion and they just go battle phase, well, you're going to need something to protect the Secretarian, like a horn or something. So your key cards in the mirror match are typically going to be stuff like this, and also, of course, Dragoon, Winda, whatever you would make with King of the Swamp. Now, Filia Regis, the reason that this is important in the mirror match is because it banishes, and Dracotail has horrible recursion from banished, which is why you're going to see people side decking cards like Retaliating Sea, because Retaliating Sea on Rahu means that you're not going to be getting the effects of your Dracotail's Engrave, since they were banished instead. And retrieving your fusions after they've been used, or your monsters from banished, is just not really feasible unless you're running a specific variant deck like Dragon Maid, which is able to use the banished monsters as fusion material off of Lady. Mysterion, of course, because you can kind of just hang super low to the ground and end on like Mysterion, so if you see they're putting multiple bodies on the board and they're all either same type or whatever, you can go Mysterion to banish a dragon and then banish all of their dragons. Secretarian, of course, already kind of talked about it. Arthalion is, of course, very important, because once they've established their fusions, you can use Arthalion to start bouncing everything so that they lose a lot of that advantage. And of course, use it to bounce your cards from grave to hand as well. So in a case where they do remove your Secretarian, you can use Arthalion to put it back in your extra deck. And then kind of grind that way. And then I suppose Seal is pretty important, because if they go like normal, what's the word I'm looking for here? If they go like if they commit to like a pretty good normal summon, like for example a 𝐒𝐿𝐢𝐚, and they're starting to get into the combo to go into Seals, you can use your spheres. You can use your spheres to prevent that from happening, and then just go plus off of it by summoning your own Malulu, and then using that Malulu to rip apart the rest of their board. But definitely the MVPs of the mirror match are just gonna be like Mysterian, Secretarian, and Philia. If you're running the Dragon Maid version, 𝐒𝐤 is going to be MVP outside of Secretarian, because 𝐒𝐤 being able to just go, yeah, I'm going to negate your 𝐒𝐵𝐵𝐼𝐼, or I'm going to negate your Rahu, is extremely important. Preventing them from getting their fusion effects off is going to be one of the main things that's going to win you the mirror match. So negates are king. And of course, Blame is going to be extremely important in the mirror match. And I know I mentioned that Spheres is very good to prevent them from getting to their full inboard, but bouncing to hand is not that great, obviously, because they can just use the effects to fuse using monsters in hand, and then they get the effects in grave. So you kind of want like monster removal, spell trap removal, that kind of stuff, especially when they're setting stuff. If you see that they're setting spell traps and they haven't activated them yet, like if they've set a Ketu or a Rahu, you want to remove them from the board as quickly as possible before they have a chance to activate them. So, for example, using the 𝐒𝐿𝐢𝐚, and then using like a quick effect fuse or a trap to negate or bounce, you can use the 𝐒𝐿𝐚 to pop a set spell trap, which is going to be extremely, extremely important. Because one of the reasons why Dracotail is so good is because every single card in the deck typically either goes +0 or positive. There are very few times where you end up going negative. The few times that you end up going negative are usually when you get hand trapped. Like Imperm on the Arthalion hurts a lot. Called by on the 𝐒𝐵𝐵𝐼𝐼, stuff like that. Also, by extension, SP is really good in the mirror as well, because you can use it to dodge targeted effects from Arthalion, and also use it to remove parts from their board. So if you're able to get into SP, it's a pretty reliable source of disruption against the mirror. And yeah, now, if you're thinking about side deck options, of course Thrust is a pretty good one. Judgments, just the Solemn package in general, pretty good. Valor is also a viable choice in main deck, because it is a not once per turn hand trap that you can bounce back to hand with Arthalion. So for example, if you open like a Valor, a 𝐒𝐿𝐢𝐼𝐼, and like a name, you can use the 𝐒𝐿𝐢𝐼𝐼 to grab 𝐒𝐵𝐵𝐼𝐼, and then you can use 𝐒𝐵𝐵𝐼𝐼 to go for the Valor and the Malulu. Make Arthalion, use Arthalion to bounce back the 𝐒𝐵𝐵𝐼𝐼 and the Valor. And then chaining your Malulu and so on and so forth. And it also works on the opponent's turn, so if you've got monsters in your hand that don't really do anything, like the Dragon Maids or the Mulch Armies, you can discard those to retrieve Valors from grave, and then use those as additional interruption. Because there are going to be times where you're going to go for a big Arthalion, and your opponent's not going to really have a whole lot on their board. They might have like 1, 2, maybe 3 cards, and you're going Arthalion for like 4 or 5. So you can use the Arthalion to just grab back hand traps. And usually when those instances happen, you're in a winning position anyway. So, of course, if I made any mistakes, or if you guys caught anything that you feel like should be mentioned, make sure to put it down in the comments below. It helps me, it helps you, it helps everyone else watching the video. And if you guys would like to see other Dracotail deck profiles, or anything else about Dracotail, like a hand trap guide or something like that, make sure to let me know, because typically I make these videos based on what my community wants, or whatever I think is just cool shit at the time, so, you know. This is probably going to be the deck that I'm on for the foreseeable future. It is a deck that I've been waiting for a while, and it is a deck that I am still getting used to, but I thought that this would be a good video to kind of give you a beginner's guide to learning the deck and some options and routes that you can take. Of course, all knowledge is good knowledge. Even if I mess up in the video, then that at least allows you and everyone else to know, like, hey, remember not to do this. So yeah, thank you guys for watching the video. Make sure you subscribe if you like the content. I know I haven't uploaded for a while, since before the most recent deck profile video, which you should go watch if you haven't yet. But yeah, thank you guys, and I hope that you have a lovely day, and I'll see you later. Bye bye. Oh, also shout out to the Nerd Dungeon, who sponsors my team, Team Night Shift. If you guys tend to go to events or anything, you might see us with our jerseys on over there at a couple of regionals, YCSs, so on and so forth. Anyway, I've talked enough. Get out of here. Leave.